Over IRS Form 211. This is the application for award for original information. Basically, this is the whistleblower form. So if you are reporting something about noncompliance with tax laws or violation of tax laws, if you're reporting someone under the IRS whistleblower program, then you could be eligible for a monetary award. So we'll talk about this form, but first I want to lead into it with a little bit more information about the whistleblower program and how it's changed over the past couple of years. So generally the IRS that has an office is called the whistleblower office. And the way it works is if someone reports either another person, a business, an entity, it could be a tax exempt organization, anyone that is suspected of violating tax laws, if the IRS decides to go after and collect based on this information, then the whistleblower award amount can be anywhere between 15 and 30% of whatever the IRS collects from that situation, as long as whatever that amount is, if it's directly related to the whistleblower's information. So there's a lot of information on the IRS website about how that program works. Specifically, it's authorized under two parts of the tax code. And we can get way down into the details, but what I really wanted to kind of address is that this is something that has been tweaked over the years. It was first incorporated in the 1800s, and since then it's been tweaked periodically by changes in the tax law to kind of help facilitate more effective maintenance of this program. It's also reported to Congress in an annual report by the IRS. So again, you don't have to request an award, but if you are reporting someone for violating the tax law, just know that you could be eligible for up to anywhere between 15 and 30% of what the IRS collects. So basically, some of the eligibility requirements: you have to have specific, timely, and credible information. You cannot be an employee of the Department of Treasury, so even IRS employees would not be eligible for this. And you have to provide your contact information and sign this document under penalty of perjury. So if you want to report that information, you can absolutely do that. The IRS is not allowed to require that you provide your information, and you certainly do not have to provide it. But if you wish to receive the award, then you would have to provide your contact information. So you're not eligible if you're an employee or a former employee of the Treasury Department, or if you're an employee when you obtain this information. So, if you're hearing juicy gossip at the water fountain and then you decide to retire and drop this, you wouldn't be eligible. If you were a federal government employee of any branch and you obtained this information in the course of your duties, you would not be eligible. If you're reporting something that's already required by federal law to provide to the IRS, you wouldn't necessarily be eligible for this. If you're under contract with the federal government and the information you obtained was based on whatever the scope of your contract was, or if you're filing a claim based on information from an ineligible whistleblower. So if you're filing on behalf of someone who wouldn't be able to file, you're not allowed to do that either. So there are certain rules on how the award is processed. We won't get into that details, but we'll say that the award percentage decreases based on claims if they're from public sources or if the whistleblower planned or initiated the actions that led to the non-compliance. So, and then there are also mandatory awards that meet certain criteria. For example, if the tax matter exceeds $2 million or impacts someone that is an individual taxpayer whose gross income exceeds $200,000 in at least one of the tax years in question. That's a mandatory award. The IRS is required to issue an award based on collections. If a situation arises that doesn't qualify for a mandatory award, then the IRS does have certain discretion to be able to award a whistleblower amount anyway, but that would go under a discretionary program. So this is the form. You can get that on the IRS website. We'll put links in the show notes. We'll also put links in the show notes to the article that we've attached to it and some of the other tax forms that you might be filing. But real quick, there are 3 sections, and then on the starting with page 3, there are step-by-step instructions for each question. So let's get to the top. If you want to check this box to print a blank copy and fill it out by hand, you can absolutely do that. We're just going to go through this online, or on the digital copy, and then you can print it out and sign it. So are you submitting information related to an existing claim? We'll say that no, this is a new claim. Did you submit this to the IRS or other federal or state agencies? So if you hover over this information box, it says attach copies of the information that you submitted if it's still available. So we'll say yes. Then you would say we reported it, blah, 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 to certain agency. Let's see, ABC agency on 1/1/2025. Joe Smith. So if you submitted yes on this, you would enter a claim number. So you can find out what you're being prompted to provide by checking some of these boxes. So check the box if you're including attachments. So that would prompt them to look for any attachments. Let's just say that our hero John Doe is reporting, we'll say John Jones, and John Jones's social security number. Of course, if you scroll down to the instructions, it'll tell you what you can do, if applicable or if you can. So if known, you can provide that taxpayer information. If not, then it's not mandatory in order for you to submit this claim. Approximate data, either date of birth or approximate age. Let's say he's 35, and let's just say that he is in So you're going to check the box if you need to add additional taxpayers, and then it will spit out additional people. You can use this plus button on the side, and then a little bit further from that to the right, just off screen, there's an X. So you can toggle between hitting the X to delete a row, or you can add a row. So just like that. And then what is your relationship to the non-compliant? Let's just say that he's a former employee. You would describe your position, either for a current or a former employee. If you selected family member, then you would say, do you still maintain a relationship? If you were the attorney, then it would ask appropriate questions. Are you still acting as an attorney? Is there any information that might be protected by attorney-client privilege? And then same with the CPA. Is there any protected information? So if you hit none, then that's the only box that you can check where it doesn't ask secondary questions. So let's just say we're a former employee of the non-compliant taxpayer. So I did all of the work at John Jones's office, company headquarters, Acme I personally so I served in this role as chief fixer from 1/1/2000 to 1/1/2024. Whatever the case may be. So you're going to put a narrative in there that helps the IRS understand your relationship and how you would have been in a position to obtain this information. Section B, we're going to talk about the alleged violations. You can check more than one. You would check all that apply. If you want to know more information, you can click this link right here. It'll take you to the page on the IRS website that talks about the Treasury regulations if you wanted to nerd out into those details. Or you can simply say, I think he committed tax fraud, and I think he underreported income, and I don't think he paid any taxes, and I think he was laundering money. Literally whatever it is, but just know that you're going to enter that alleged violation. I believe that John Jones was, whatever the case may be, operating in underground fight club, and you would have to say sheltering the money, right? So sheltering the proceeds as cash sales of Acme widgets. I personally saw income statements that were falsified to underreport Acme's income, and I am confident that this was done to avoid recognition of income tax. I do not believe that the taxes were ever paid. So, whatever the case may be, again, if you need to put additional details and you run out of space, you can always attach additional information. Is this based on public information? No. Then you would have to say, I personally saw this, but had never participated as in this activity. When John approached me to take over financial reporting duties, I told him no and resigned immediately. And then you would, in item 13, you describe the amount of tax owed. So let's say, I believe that John owes between $10,000 and $50,000 based upon information that I found in ledgers, photo copies attached. And then you would fill in the tax year and the dollar amounts. So that could be something like 2023 tax year, dollar amount $10,000, tax year 2022. Let's just say that we think that that was $40,000. And then section C, that's the last part. So if you're If you're reporting this by yourself, you can leave box 15 blank. If you're filing as jointly, then you would check that box. Someone else would be completing their end of it. And so you're going to put your information. So only a natural person could submit a claim, a natural person being a human being. So John Jones can't report in a corporate capacity. It would have, or sorry, not John Jones. Let's say John Doe. And let's say John Doe was born on 1/1/1970, and his social security number is. Now, again, you don't need to do any of this, but it's hard for the IRS to pay you if you don't give them information so that they can track you down and verify that this information is accurate. So you kind of take the good with the bad. So if you want to remain anonymous, you're not going to complete this form. If you complete this form, then you're going to need to reconcile the fact that you'll be asked to sign it. So you can check this box if you authorize the whistleblower office to keep sending correspondence to the address that you've provided. So, yep, I'd like to be included. Of course, they're not going to tell you every single detail, but they will tell you information that's pertinent to your case. They should assign a case number, and then so if you attach the power of attorney form, then that would mean that you've authorized someone else, either your attorney or an accountant, to represent you in front of the IRS. So for tax matters only, that would be the power of attorney. So then you're going through the series of questions to make sure that you're not an excluded person. So you're not the spouse of an IRS employee. You're not a former employee. You're not a former employee of the federal government. If you check yes to any of these, it's going to ask you to provide explanation. So if you're a former employee, did you obtain this information while you're an employee of the Department of Treasury? That's probably going to get kicked back to if you say yes. But if you say no, you could be an honest Department of Treasury employee and still be in a situation after you leave to witness, financial crimes. So you certainly should be eligible for a whistleblower award. So on page 3, we're not filing this form based on information from an ineligible person, and then John Doe would sign here and put in whatever today's date is. So you can add additional claimants since we indicated that, and then claimant 2 would just put their information in. So you keep adding. So additional claimants don't have to submit a separate form. And then on the back, there are instructions, again, step by step. You would send the completed form along with supporting documentation to the IRS whistleblower office. There's the address. You can scan these QR codes on the back to get more information, or if you're looking at it on an electronic device or a computer, you can simply click the link. And then if you get stuck on a specific question, you can always refer to the question, the instructions on the back. So that wraps it up pretty much for this. Like I mentioned, I'll put links in the show notes to both the article for this, as well as articles and videos we've created on resources that might be pertinent to reporting violations. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, or if there's another topic that you'd like to see in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comment section. Thank you very much and have a great day.